I read that book, Carolyn McGuire, called Why Won't Anybody Play With Me?
Wonderful title.
It is, because it talks about how kids with ADHD and kind of adults get so many more negative social cues
Yep.
throughout their life.
Yeah.
Phil Phails for you.
So then there's self-esteem issues and shame, and and their identity gets caught up as being someone who's lazy or, problematic. Yeah,
Yep.
It's heartbreaking.
Gabriel Mate talked about that.
Yes.
How shame was one of the main things that folks dealt with.
Yeah, I'll probably be talking about shame today, I imagine, at some point.
Yeah. I notice approaching this topic, I feel sadness. It's present here with me. Yeah. And I think that relates to the addiction, because it's like, how do we make sense of all of that in a world where we're walking this earth and it's like, I'm a good person. I love people. I love connection, and then, so how do I make sense of all this feedback that I'm getting socially, culturally from the people?
What feedback are you getting?
Those negative social cues.
Oh, what, that you're like too much, or they don't want to?
For me, in my life, personally, it's been exclusion from groups my whole life. Almost every group I've ever been in.
That surprises me, because how I know you in yoga, everybody finds you so delightful,
Yeah.
That didn't used to be the case.
I mean, it's still not the case. I, as a 48-year-old man, as I'm embarrassed sharing this, but I wrote a lengthy kind of either article about it, or maybe it'd be a book. I don't know what it'll be, but I tried to really look back on my experience of exclusion, ostracization, these negative social cues as a survey of my life. And as a 48-year-old man, I would go to these group rides, this bike ride that was every Saturday, this local bike shop. And after a year of riding with them, they invited me into a room and said they didn't want me to ride with them for like a month or more because of the way that they felt like I was showing up.
How did they think you were showing up?
They thought that the things that I talked about, people found uncomfortable or off-putting, like my shares, the way that I would communicate.
Talking about, your personal life or emotions?
No, I think in some ways I would like goof off. Like, I've gotten this idea that men like to goof off in ways that are kind of like, oh, you're gay, or like these like kind of subtly sexual ways, I don't know how to explain it. It's a guy. I think that's what guys want to do. Like, that's how they say we're friends. And I don't do that naturally. It's not the way I normally.
But you were trying to fit in. You were trying to speak a foreign language, so to speak.
Yeah. I don't watch football. I don't really know how to speak, dude. Yeah. So I would like do it. And then the way I would do it, I guess, would be seen as like, oh, you're making people uncomfortable. So I'm like, I'm not doing it right, obviously. And I think they said that the way that I'd ride the bike on the group rides wasn't safe, or I wasn't like responding to their cues to change. And I explored it in this article. I could send it to you and get your ID on it, but it was heartbreaking.
Was this recent?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's painful. Oh, being excluded is the most painful thing.
It is. And
I mean, it hurts.
It really did.
It hurt,
Mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah. It was a group that I'd been with for more than a year and that had done so many great things for me. I've been doing the show, so I haven't been spending money on anything, like austerity measures, you'll call it. And so they put together a bike for me to ride, a road bike. This community, people in it, really supported me in so many wonderful ways. I was really taken aback when that happened. Because, and I explored in this.
And they didn't have conversations with you before? They didn't try talking with you before? Or?
I think one person did, but not in a way. I think he would say he did, and I would say I didn't really I didn't really take it that way.
You needed something a little more direct and obvious.
I did, unfortunately.
Right. People have such a hard time being direct.
And yeah.
I mean, it's like marriages so often. There's a problem, and so one person will just keep withdrawing until the point that the connection has been broken, and then they want out, and the other person is often surprised because they weren't getting the feedback, in a way they could take in.
Yeah. Exactly. So I wrote all about it just as a way, like, how do I turn this into lemonade? And I looked at a bunch of signs.
And you're interviewing a bicyclist, and there's still that connection with bicycling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually a wonderful thing when they ostracized me from that group. I mean, that sounds extreme. When they said, don't ride with us for a month, right? I went and started riding with other group rides around town and found myself really making new friends and discovering new rides and new parts of the city and things. And
Are you going back to the group?
I went back one time and rode with them. I probably would.
I could understand why it might be uncomfortable.
I mean, one of the things about me and my neurodivergence, my brain or whatever, I tend to like make people develop intimacy quick, or at least social expressions of intimacy really quick. Like I put people in a friend category. And so then that can probably have me expressing in ways that people are like, wait a second, we don't have that foundation. And I don't notice those cues that they give that this is too much. And I'll interpret like back off cues as like jokes or play.
Right.
Which is challenging.
There's a term I'm trying to think of that'll come to me at some point. My word retrieval isn't as good as it used to be. But it refers to, so one thing, of course, as I'm sure you know, that's not uncommon if someone's on the spectrum.
Yep.
But the other thing is that even people who aren't on the spectrum can have difficulty with knowing how close to be to people. So often, if people didn't get some of their attachment or developmental needs met in childhood, they will either be, there's a whole spectrum, of course, but on one end of the spectrum is paranoid and super private and shut down and not trusting people, not sharing.
Avoidant.
Yeah. Well, it's not even avoidant. It's called epistemic trust.
Epistemic trust.
Yes. And so for people who got their attachment needs adequately met and so forth, they just kind of inherently know when it's appropriate to open up to people and when it's appropriate to be less open and more guarded. But if you didn't get internalized that because of lacks or deficiencies in childhood, you might not know. And you might be on the one side, kind of paranoid, guarded. That would be one extreme, that you assume people are hostile or they can't be trusted. On the other end of the spectrum might be somebody who tells their life story to whoever is sitting on the bus next to them, might be fall in love too easily, sexually promiscuous, these kinds of things, setting themselves up for her, like overly vulnerable, right? And so, often, that's something that if people can be aware of, they can work on, right? Like what are the signs that it's safe? You start with just putting a toe in the water of vulnerability with someone, see if they respond in kind with a little bit of vulnerability, right? But again, using terms like this and stuff, it can be helpful when people think, oh, it's a thing.
Yeah.
This is a thing I have trouble with.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Now what can I do about it?
Epistemic trust, is that what you called it?
Yeah.
And it sounds like a spectrum or a binary when on one side, you're closed off.
Yeah.
You always kind of assume it's not safe.
Yeah, the world's against you.
And the other one, like, you're way too open to the world and to people.
A little too vulnerable too,
Vulnerable.
Not enough of the boundaries.
And the middle way is kind of
that you've got that internalized guide that's telling you, what's appropriate, and because that's what's done with you.
Yeah. Heck, I'm probably over here on this side, the open, vulnerable side. In my life, I've experienced the promiscuity that you talked about, the being really kind of letting anybody into my life and not really judging whether or not they were safe, and having people
Right.
that weren't safe.
Right.
And part of that is open to influence.
Right. Too influenceable.
Yep. Too influenceable.
And again, part of it can be being on the spectrum. So some of those things you have to learn from here, right?
Yeah.
But also it can be, again, that, for example, you had an unpredictable attachment figure as a child, like a parent. And so you couldn't, there wasn't the consistent, predictable. And so maybe you had to be hypervigilant.
Yep.
Or maybe you're using modeling and the parent didn't have boundaries, right? And shared too much with the child. Treated the child as a best friend, for example, overshared, right? So then that became normalized for the child.
Yeah. So many things can happen.
Yeah.
Ugh. I think I woke up when we talked earlier about waking up to your past. I woke up before I started the show, but it was when I recognized the impact of this on my kids and thought, I need to change, or I need to figure some things out
Yeah.
so I can model and behave differently.
How old are your kids?
They're 14 and 17 now.
Wow. How are they doing?
Emerson is a junior in high school. She's awesome. I think she's probably, I'm not going to diagnose her with anything, but I think she might be a little more guarded, more like, I think masking is a word that I could use for her. Like, not really, like when I ask her what's going on emotionally, or when I try to get in, she won't want to talk about it.
Yeah. But that's pretty common with adolescents and their parents.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
She's at a place where
She's differentiating. Yeah.
Self-differentiation, the Murray Bowen stuff. She's, I've asked her to go to family therapy numerous times just to let's just figure out how to have a great relationship and communicate in a healthy way. And she doesn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
My 14-year-old Eve, on the other hand, is in a facility in Utah. She really struggled with suicidal ideation, self-harm, a lot of things. And so, I feel tender about that. And I'm hoping that it resolves itself in some healthy way. That was a big watershed because I felt a lot of guilt that I was responsible for that. And I know that's not true. It's a big cultural, social soup.
Yes.
And there's a lot of unknowns with her biology and mom, and there's a divorce, all that stuff. But I thought, well, I need to be the best human I can be to.
That's a great incentive for growth.
It really is. It really is. And I'm hopeful that she gets some healthy coping strategies and, gets that support. Although I'm skeptical because these programs basically co-locate a lot of kids with the same challenges.
Yeah, I have heard that.
And they're at a place where they're modeling, and probably, just like we said, they're very influenceable. They're very open to influence from their peers, maybe more so than from adults.
Right.
And so the peers that they're around have challenges. So I think, goodness, is this the best way to do this? We almost should locate these kids with a bunch of really positive, adaptable kids and let them just model. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
But co-locating, and then the other thing that I worry about is the restraint and seclusion that they use. Yeah.
Yeah, you worry.
I do.
Yeah.
That's, it is what it is. Parents worry.
Yep.
you.